Pop culture loves to talk about how we only use 10% of our brains. All kinds of movies have been made about our untapped potential and how sci-fi technologies and drugs could break the barrier and give us full access to our brains. But that whole 10% of the brain thing, it's just another myth. No one is really sure where this myth came from, but some folks think it comes from conversations about the untapped potential of our mental resources. It might also come from early neuroscience research, where scientists discovered that even after removing big pieces of a mouse's brain, it could be taught simple tasks. Wherever the myth came from, it's not true. We use most of our brain, but we don't use all of our brain all of the time. About half the cells in the brain aren't neurons, they're glia. And while they're important, they don't do the electrical signaling that we think of when we think of using our brain cells. And it's kind of true that there's some potential to the brain that goes unused. This is part of the normal process of development. Basically, when you're born, you have way more possible neuronal connections in the brain than you could ever really need. So as we grow up, our brain prunes back those extra connections because they're not being used. And the brain wants to focus its resources on strengthening the rest of its connections instead. Finally, it's important to note that not every single neuron in the brain is firing at the same time. Neurons send signals in carefully coordinated patterns to communicate information. Too many firing at the same time is actually really bad for you. That's what causes seizures. All of that being said, you do use all parts of your brain. You've got entire brain regions devoted to processing all 5 of your senses, and structures that handle all of the important tasks like sleeping and eating that keep you alive, and even circuits that manage emotional information. And all of those systems are being used pretty constantly, even when you're asleep. Our great big brains with all of those brain cells are part of what makes us uniquely human. So worry less about tapping into that non-existent, unused part of your brain and focus on enjoying the 100% that you've got. Thanks for joining us to celebrate Brain Awareness Week. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to learn more about the brain. Until next time, I'm Ellie Astrocyte. Over and out.